When I first came up with the idea of tailoring life jackets, I had businessmen in my head. They were made for a board meeting at sea. And that the solution to climate change is not to actually fix the problem, but it's just to change your wardrobe. I've been sewing my whole life. I started sewing on my grandmother's lap. My feet weren't long enough to reach the pedals, so I would sit on her lap and she would push the pedal and I would sew. It's sort of just been something that's accompanied me through my whole life. It's just a comfort. It's a way of being still. It's a way of making sense. I think it's the process of taking something flat and turning it into something three-dimensional that you can put on, that exists without you. You have made it, but then somebody else puts it on and it has a whole nother life. A lot of these threads were my grandmother's. Often I'm coming into the garment's life partway through the life of the garment. It's already been made. It's already been worn, sometimes for years. I think of them as story keepers. I think of them as memories, like a tangible memory. So this is Lifers. We have 36 hand-tailored life jackets. As you can see around the room, there are images of the life jackets in use. The whole body of work began when I was a resident out on Salt Spring Island back in 2019, and I found a series of life jackets on the beach. And so I hiked them back to the studio and I started to tailor the life jackets, but imagining them as something that I could kind of wear in my everyday life that would still keep me afloat. I started taking the life jackets to critiques and to open studio nights and stuff, and people started giving me their clothing and they started giving me their life jackets, and I amassed a large collection. As I worked, it became really, really important to me that everything be used and found. If anybody wants to practice with these buttons, you're more than welcome to. As an artist, I want to work with materials that are on hand that would otherwise be discarded. And so I want to honor and use what already exists to create work. The trick with pants is to not stick the legs together. Yeah, they tend to work better that way. I've done it before. My favorite thing to teach is adult sewing to people who have never sewn before. How do you make fabric? Weaving. How else? Yep. If we knew how long it took to make a garment, we wouldn't be as likely to throw it out, and things wouldn't end up in landfill the same way. You know, if we think of growing a crop and dyeing it and then spinning it and weaving it and cutting it, we wouldn't be as likely to get rid of them. In the process of making Lifers, I started exploring and researching famous life jackets. The ones that immediately come to mind are Titanic, and a lot of the Lifers are inspired by some of the survivors from the Titanic. And I started finding clips of survivors talking about the experience of being on the Titanic as it sunk.
I had on my evening slippers, diamond buckles, wool cap, and 2 fox furs.
So this one's made out of cork, which is the exact same material used on the Titanic. And there are reports that when people jumped into the ocean, the cork was so heavy it came up and knocked out people's teeth and broke their jaws and stuff like that.
He said, "You'll have to jump now into the lifeboat." I said, "Jump? With this thing I've got on?"
What really, really strikes me about the Titanic is the word hubris and this belief that we're infallible. And we still believe that we're infallible and that our actions don't have consequences. My hope with this show is to start this conversation. I want to give hope to people that by learning how to mend and just generally being aware of where your clothes come from, together as a group, we can make a difference when it comes to climate change, because it's often We feel like we're drowning and we need a life jacket when we start these really difficult conversations. Let's practice the slip stitch. So grab 2 different fabrics and you can start to make a patch. If we get into the mindset where mending is okay and it doesn't have to be perfect, and every little stitch that's on a garment has a story behind it, and we celebrate those moments, I think we'd be richer for it. How's it going? Yes.
Inside?
Yeah, but through the blue.
Oh, through the blue.
Yeah.
Go in.
I just want to be a good citizen in the world. My art practice and my being in the world bleed into each other, just because art holds up a mirror to the world around us, and climate change is the world around us. Great. I hope I answered some of your questions, and I hope this gets you practicing and stitching and sewing. Okay, awesome. And if we can darn and fix and not throw out, then we're in a better place.